I've been lucky enough to ride on some amazing roads on my travels. The kind of roads that have very little traffic and beautiful scenery. In this video I want to share a few of my favorites. The kind of roads that when you're riding them you just don't want them to end. I often feel like I would do the entire trip all over again just for this one moment. I've certainly not ridden every road in the world, so this is by no means a best 5 kind of list. It's more of a best 5 so far. So at number 5 is this stretch from my trip in the Czech Republic, from Mikulov down over the border into Austria and back across the border to Valtice. I honestly could have picked almost any day from this trip. We spent almost every day riding on empty roads through parks and farmland. But I chose this one in particular. It was our last day and maybe the most memorable. The two towns on either end of this stretch are both beautiful, small cities in the countryside of the Czech Republic. They both have cobblestone streets and medieval downtowns that are really well preserved. The ride between them actually started out very unpleasant. We were riding alongside this busy truck road, crossing the border into Austria. As soon as we turned off this main road, we were met by these golden fields of grain and small vineyards. There was almost no traffic until we got closer to Valtice. There are some interesting archaeological sites in this area, including the world's oldest pottery. It's definitely worth a visit if you're in the area. Number 4 is the road from Velengrad to Dospat in Bulgaria. It's in the Rhodope Mountains, which is in the south of the country on the Greek border. The road starts with a big climb, a short descent, and then a long flat section with conifer-covered hills on both sides. Unfortunately, all my footage was super shaky, but here's a few photos so you can get a sense of what it was really like. There's a huge reservoir formed by a dam at Dospat that flows all the way to Sarnica. We took this vintage narrow-gauge train to get up to Velengrad. There are many charming small hotels in this area. People tend to come for the hot springs and the outdoor activity. I was also really impressed by Bulgarian food. This trip, and this road in particular, made me really want to go back to the Balkans. Up next in third place is the road 507 in southern Portugal. We picked it up south of the town of Alcutim where it runs along the Spanish border. It provided nice views of the Guadiana River, and on the Spanish side the town of Sanlúcar, right across the river from Alcutim. After Alcutim, the road turned northwest and had some more challenging hills. This is one of the more empty areas of Portugal and we barely saw any vehicles on the road. We were surrounded by dry hills and pine trees. It really felt like we had the whole region to ourselves. Alcutim itself was a pleasant surprise. We knew almost nothing about the town, but it was charming, peaceful, and had almost no tourists. There are 2 castles to explore, one on each side of the river. At number 2 is this stretch in southern Baja California in Mexico. Specifically, it's this tiny white line that starts in El Cardenal, goes over the mountains and into a town called Los Planes. It's a sandy and rocky, unpaved stretch of road, and I was glad we were riding mountain bikes for this part. It's also super remote, and we were only passed by about 3 people in the course of several hours. It starts out along the coast of the Sea of Cortez. It has lots of ups and downs with just the sea on one side and cacti and mountains on the other. Then it turns inland for a small crossing of the mountains. The climb wasn't too bad, and this is the view from the top. And this was the descent into Los Planes. The heat and the terrain made this stretch super challenging, but it had some of the best views I've ever seen. We only rode a tiny portion of the Baja Divide, so I expect to be back to ride the rest. Now before I reveal the road I have at number 1, I have a few honorable mentions. The first is the Ruta Puc in Yucatan, Mexico. It means the hilly road in Mayan, but as you can see it's not exactly very big hills. In fact, the road is actually a little bit boring. It's just jungle on one side and pavement. The reason I decided to include it on this list is it gives you access to some amazing Mayan ruins. The most famous of which is Uxmal, which is up the road, and then Caba, but on this road there are 3 ruins very close to each other that don't get very many tourists at all. There's also a huge famous cave system nearby. You could spend several days exploring this area. Just watch out for these guys. The other honorable mention is the stretch of road from Battambang to Phnom Penh in Cambodia. We rode out this way to see the famous temple at Phnom Penh, and we took the main road going out, which was a little bit busy and kind of boring. On the way back I rode on the other side of the river, on these little motorcycle tracks. It was much more pleasant. It passed through tiny little villages and you can see people fishing in the river. It was a great window into the rural life in Cambodia. So at number 1 is this incredible section of road in Albania. It was from our ride from Permet to Gjirokastër. More specifically, it was this river valley between Kelcira and Tepelena. We've already had several days of picturesque riding, and I probably could have picked a few others. but this one was maybe the most stunning. Every turn revealed a new layer of mountains. It was so green and empty with just a few small farms along the way. This area is full of history, and we saw these castle ruins on the hill right outside Kilsera. The town itself is small, but has lots of Greek influence being so close to the border. The road itself was in excellent shape and there was not a lot of traffic. It wasn't a very long stretch or especially challenging, but it took a while because I kept stopping to take pictures. Beautiful, empty stretches of road like this are why I love bike touring. Let me know if there's some roads you recommend in the comments, and thank you for watching.